Welcome back. It's that time when you take a look at the headlines. The big headlines this morning is Ruto plotting to abandon Jubilee. That's on the Star this morning. We rarely get to sample this one, but yeah, today we will. It is a special day. Joho ODM leaders claim the DP is using Raila's name to justify his exit. We'll be getting to that as well, that headline. Another headline that we're looking at, and this comes from the EACC. They've launched this National Ethics and Corruption Survey yesterday, where it reveals that more and more Kenyans are now paying bribes to access government services. More Kenyans getting into the bribe game. And a survey by Anti-Corruption Agency shows that Kenyans are forced to pay bribes for nearly every service, including getting a death certificate, winning tenders, and getting medical care. And that's the fact that about 62% of every Kenyan looking for government service, that is what is happening to them. That number has risen from about 46% a year ago. But, of course, the big one, Monica's murder, the plot thickens. Maribe opens up on why Lover shot himself. This murder probe, where Citizen TV news anchor Jackie Maribe is right in the middle, continues to make front page news on both the Standard and the Daily Nation this morning. And probably we start from there. Let me introduce my panelists this morning. On my right, Chris Wamalwa, MP Kiminini. Good morning, sir. Karibu sana. Silvana Sosoro, MP Mugirango South. And Antonio Loch, MP Mathare.
Thank you.
And of course, what continues to grip the nation's attention is this ongoing murder probe where my colleague Jackie Maribe has been adversely mentioned. So many claims coming up, so many issues coming out. We do have a lawyer in the panel, and this is what probably we're trying to gauge, because over the last few months, most of the headlines we've looked at least we've had two very high-profile murder cases that have seen the headlines come on the front pages. One involving the governor of Migori, Okoth Obado, who is still behind bars, and now this one involving where Jackie Maribe has been mentioned, and she is behind bars as investigations continue. This has brought about a new awareness of the investigations that go around murders, because today you see the Daily Nation breaking down bit by bit of what happened, what kind of analysis goes into a murder probe, what kind of evidence police look for, what kind of circumstantial evidence, even the possible charges that anyone involved in that issue could find themselves having to answer in court. And what is coming out is a kind of, probably, may I call it, ignorance of the law, that many Kenyans do not know what to do in case you come across such a crime, in case someone asks you to try and cover up or something like that. As a lawyer, is this something you encounter, that many Kenyans have not really interacted with the law and do not really know how to react to such matters?
Look, even when you have interacted with the law, sometimes the first instinct is not to act as a legal mind, but I think you act as a human being, and that is in panic. Mm-hmm. If, for example, it was your son, assuming even it wasn't a love affair, or your wife, and they come and tell you, look, I just committed murder, and you're in this panic, it may be that you probably need to call somebody to talk to. I think the first thing is usually to try and calm yourself and then plan an exit, to plan to talk to somebody. And I've seen many people say this in the legal circles, and I agree. Try to talk to a lawyer before you do anything. Mm-hmm. Whether you are in the thick of it, whether you are not, there is always the issue that you will incriminate yourself. And I'm not saying that people who've committed murder should be encouraged to cover up. Mm-hmm. But whatever the circumstances, there is usually what you call the presumption of innocence. And what is actually placing Maribe in this awkward situation is that the story she said contradicted what subsequently was corroborated. Because in a lot of situations, murder cases will not be open and shut. They will be trying to piece up, just like the Obado case, many pieces of evidence. And what they look for are the contradictory statements, yes, somebody else who was probably there, and then they corroborate. In this instance, there was a house help who perhaps says, you see, I saw this guy come at this time of the night, And then late into the night, you walk to the backyard and, I mean, you haven't really covered much of your tracks. And you can't cover murder cases 101%. And we have advanced. You see our DCI and the departments that support him, they've invested greatly into technology. And so the other thing that puts you into these awkward situations is the telephone conversations and the links. And this is what placed Obado, barring his presumption of innocence. The statement he said is what, I wasn't there, probably in Nairobi, but his phone was found there. So now they start to change the story that, look, Waheshimiwa and these big people give their PAs and their assistants to carry the phones. But then now, the burden will have been discharged. In terms of the prosecution, all they need to prove at that particular point is that is there a probability that if your phone was found here, the chances are that you probably were at the scene of the murder. So the burden then shifts to the defense. There is what you call the shifting of burden. Once the prosecution has established that basic possibility, the burden now shifts to the accused person, and you have to prove otherwise.
You have to prove that you were not there.
Yes.
But the kind of ignorance we see, because, okay, fine, we say there could be possible cover-up, but that also has implications. Even if you are not involved in the real crime, that could still get you in trouble, whether you're charged with being an accessory to murder or handling a firearm. These are things that will attract even time behind bars, don't you think?
That is very true, and it's very important for Kenyans to know that ignorance has no defense. I mean, you can't just say that I was ignorant of this fact, and that is why probably I stated this and this, if you faulted the law or gone against the law. And as you've well put it, clearly ignorance is a serious disease in this country. And looking at it in a broader way, besides the Maribe matter, you'll notice that Kenyans are a very funny lot. That when you get a young man buying a phone in the street, I mean, being sold a phone in the street, probably the phone, is from someone who's just been robbed violently. And when the phone is traced, this person, of course, the holder of that phone at that particular time will be held culpable for robbery with violence. Having yourself explain the circumstances to which you got that phone will really be an uphill task to Kenyans.
Handling stolen property is a crime.
Is a crime. Actually, at that particular instant, you will first be charged for robbery with violence, because clearly this person was robbed violently and in a company of probably 2 or 3 people, and you've been found with that phone. And some other very, very small things of trying to cover up for friendship or for friends, even when you know very well that probably this is exactly what happens. And what I always tell people is that when now you are found between a rock and hard place, in as much as, or rather within the scene of crime, your defense or your personal security and future becomes the priority should become the priority. Come out and say, okay, this is what happened. I mean, you're not the one who killed, or you are probably not the one who committed such a crime. Stop covering up for friends. Stop covering up for your relatives. Come out and say, this is what happened, and say the truth, and then fight for your relatives, acquittal when you're outside. Not both of you when you're inside, because you've tried to cover up something. And several other things. And I've always told people, even on these very small things, where you find, you travel, or rather you go to the supermarket, you pick receipts or something, try to keep them. Because those things will defend you at some point. You'll say, okay, at this time I was in the supermarket. This is where I was. Or even when you're entering a gate or wherever, stop arguing with the soldiers or the watchmen that, I can't fill this book. Whom do you think you are? I mean, really, just fill that book. Write your name, your car plate, and the time that you entered. It does not cost you a lot. I mean, at some point, you never know what will happen. And you'll be found among, the crime scene or within the crime scene. And you'll defend yourself based on what, or your movements at that particular time.
It raises a question, because how many Kenyans have access to this kind of legal advice? How many Kenyans know what they need to do in case of being caught in such a challenge? Because it would appear then that probably quite a huge percentage of those people behind bars who are already serving time could be convicted wrongly, because probably they did not have the access to proper legal advice. You find yourselves committing criminal offenses, probably by trying to help a friend, and then you end up the one in trouble.
I think, as you clearly put it, information is power and ignorance is not defense. At one time, I was looking at the report of IPOA, and you find that most of the people who are now behind bars, some of them are innocent. Because when you look at even the process of investigation, many times when people are recording statements, they tend to contradict themselves. And you know, when you're recording a statement, what the people are looking at, they want to look at the issue of consistency. The moment they look at the narrative, and there's consistency that is missing, just like the Obados case, and what happened to his phone, he said he's here and there. The moment they catch up with you, then you become a suspect. It becomes room for further investigation. So it is indeed critical when Kenyans are going to record statement outside there. It's good to consult maybe a legal person to be able to help you. Otherwise, some people end up criminating themselves ignorantly without knowing. So at a later stage, when you try to put across the story that is supposed to be this way, then it will look, the damage is already done. So it is actually very, very critical. And for this case, like it's unfortunate for Maribe's case, because you can imagine you live with somebody in the house, and maybe he has murdered. You know, this matter is still in court, and the presumption of innocent until proven guilty. Actually, I didn't want to comment so much, but the issue is when you live with somebody, for instance, who has committed murder, I mean, you'll be in that panic mode. Of course, you need to relax. You know, yes. Absolutely. If at all you know, you will kind of feel like taking off, and your life is also at risk. That person can also finish you. So it is important that particular time to be calm, consult your legal person, and maybe report the matter to the police.
But that's the question, because you see, we have this challenge with how we deal with the police in Kenya. And it's part of that problem that even when you need to report a crime, you have to pay a bribe. Our relationship with the police is really nothing to report home about as a country, as a society. But even when it comes to how we seek legal advice, this is not anything cheap. The two of you are lawyers. You know how much you charge just to give advice. Probably that's part of the problem, that many people who are behind bars could have benefited from legal advice, but of course they cannot afford, and there's no one willing to offer that kind of advice.
Yeah, that's very true. Legal advice, has, like every other thing, has certainly gone up. But I think it would help to know that the Law Society of Kenya does offer pro bono services, and they do call upon lawyers from time to time to help. If you ever find yourself in a situation, do not do the wrong thing because you think there is no legal advice or because you think you will not afford it. Kituo cha Sheria does the same thing. I know Katiba Institute, good friends of mine there, Waiko Wanyoike and other people. I know though if it's a woman thing, you will go to FIDA. And many other, including children places like Cradle, Millie Odhiambo is a proprietor. There is no shortage of avenues or places where you can get legal advice. And secondly...
But are Kenyans aware that these services are available? Are they even seeking such services?
That's the problem, because you know the Law Society of Kenya does Legal Awareness Week every single year. There is a Legal Awareness Week. But like every other thing, you don't really pay so much attention to it until you get into trouble. These are things that come and they probably don't make it to your news headlines. Yes. Because the people don't think about it until even you yourself. I'm sure your news anchor probably didn't think twice about these things in spite of these things happening until she got herself in trouble. I think that you will probably find that on a quick dial, you probably find my saloonist, my hangout partner, my what. It's always good to have on your quick dial list my pastor, my school teacher, my kids' head teacher. Put those on the speed dial, my lawyer, so that on any such thing, the first person you need to be able to contact should be on your speed dial. People don't think about these things.
It is coming out that, yeah, you really need a friend who's a lawyer. Just even for quick legal advice, what do I do in this instance?
Very true, because we are living actually in the technology world and living in the world where things are out there and everything that happens, keeps or gets out to the world very fast. And it will be, for me, it will be totally negligent on a person not to have a friend who is a lawyer. I mean, really, where we are having I do not really know that there is a village right now as we speak that does not have a person who is a lawyer.
But I'm looking at the instances where we've had cases of people who have ended up being even sentenced to death for robbery with violence, probably because they were in an altercation with someone and they ended up probably picking the torch that did not belong to them, and that ends up being a robbery with violence.
I think I also need to make it clear that there are charges or there are capital offenses, mostly homicides, that one does not really need to have to hire a lawyer by himself. That, like, for instance, murder cases, one does not really need to hire a lawyer by himself if you are charged in court, because they can't actually proceed without a lawyer. What the state will do, it will provide for you a lawyer and pay him. And really, there are things, there are serious crimes that clearly the state will have to look for you a lawyer to represent you. However, again, you do not go to a crime knowingly. Some of these things just happen. They are planned crimes, of course, but they are crimes mostly, some crimes like robbery, violence, probably could be planned. But there are also crimes instances that you actually find yourself.
Self-defense, for
exactly,
example.
out of the self-defense.
Crimes of passion.
Exactly. Where probably your love has messed you and you feel those are the ones that we call crimes of passion. But if you find yourself in any of such circumstances, just like my learned seniors well put, what you need to do is that you need to relax. Dr. Chris has said here that what affects people is this kind of discrepancies in their statement. Writing, they panic, they get themselves in panic mode. They probably think that this thing will happen too fast and stuff like that. You have all the time. Look at Jackie Maribe's matter, for instance. She was questioned by the police in 2 preceding days. And in all those days, according to the news, is that she was giving 2 contradictory messages. And that is extremely negative. Yes. You need to relax. You need to know that you equally have rights. Even if you're an accused person, you have rights. And actually, the police officers need also to explain to you the reason of your arrest under Article 49, give you a fair hearing, allow you to breathe in and explain yourself. They need to relax.
But does that really happen?
Actually, that happens. Unfortunately, I do not want to be the devil's advocate, but I want to tell you this, that most police officers who handle serious crimes are actually professionals. They're mostly from the DCI. Guys who actually sit with you. They always lock you in a certain room and sit with you, 2 or 3 of you, and question you. They don't harass you on matters like, murder and stuff like that. They question you. They just want to get your statement as it is. On the issue of reporting, as you've said, I do not think there is a police officer who charges any person for reporting a matter at the station. Well, I don't think so. Well, what happens is at times they just get us to assume you, but they do not tell you, okay, you can't report.
Well, this is according to the national survey conducted by EACC.
I've gone to police stations and I've not seen anywhere where they'll charge you. I mean, they demand something. It's only that they'll harass you, and harassing is normal. And
no, that should not be.
No, in police force, it's normal. By the way, but you rarely see a police officer. It's only in Tanzania we are told a police officer will tell you, tafadhali naomba tuambatane.
But surely,
tuende katika kituo cha polisi.
Isn't that part of the problem? We're saying that you could be finding yourself in problems, and probably you end up incriminating yourself without knowing, just because of the way the police are handling you.
And by the way, one of their strategy is to intimidate you when you are doing your statements, so that you can be able to contradict yourself, so they can be able to patch up. And it's part of their training.
We've even had cases where people claim that they were tortured into
absolutely. And if you go back to the Nyayo chambers, what we hear, what used to happen those days, I think the highest time is part of the reforms that people have been demanding when it comes to the police reforms. Because when you go to a police station, you get intimidation. Mama, unataka nini? I've been watching this program on Citizen. It's called what? Inspector Mwala. You see, one of the issues for you to bring out that information, they also want to intimidate you. And you, as a person who has gone to report, do not get intimidated first. Be calm and state as it were. If you know you are innocent, please do not fear. Just explain the way it was, unless you want to hide something. If really you know you are innocent, please
But you do
report
accept
as per what is there.
the
But
first
the issue
reaction
of
is
the
fear of police.
absolutely, but the issue of the police, and that's what we said. These are some of the police reforms. And to me, in fact, I was on the floor of the House supporting IPOA. IPOA, this Independent Police Oversight Authority, it's been doing very good work. You find that at times you're going to report against another police and you're reporting to another police officer. Obviously, there's that defense mechanism that is there. It's unfortunate that IPOA is not well funded, but to me, it's a very good body that provides oversight in the police force. A lot of these issues are being mixed up. Even the person who is recording that, that particular statement, they intimidate you in a way so that you can be able to contradict yourself, you know, to scare you. Now you go into the panic mode. And once you're in the panic mode, obviously, you can't be able to compose yourself and maybe put the story across. But what is there when it comes to writing statements? I've seen in many cases, you are required to record a statement. At times, some people are taken to the courts, the charge sheet is not ready, you know, and the Constitution is very clear. You must be, the accused person must be told, what are you being accused of? And in most cases, the police have been doing these issues of hide and seek. As I told you, there was a report which was done by the civil society. A lot of the people behind bars, they're innocent. Yes. And this issue of accessing legal advice, we have so many people in the civil society who offer this free legal advice, but unfortunately, they've concentrated in Nairobi.
Yes.
When you go to the village, when you go to the villages, leave alone Kiminini, go to the counties. For example, in Trans Nzoia County, this Kituo cha Sheria issue, this issue of LSK, they must cascade down. I know there are a lot of money, donor funding coming up to help people in such cases. But these people, you go to Turkana, go to hardship areas, they're not there. They're just concentrating here in Nairobi. So at least we should find a framework whereby these particular institutions must cascade themselves, you know, go to Kuria, go to Trans Nzoia, go to the small villages, you know, so that these people can be sensitized and they can be able to know that here we can have the legal issues. The LSK, for instance, has been doing very good work. We've seen the Kituo cha Sheria. We've seen now Mutata has come up, becoming a spokesperson for the person down there. So I wish Mutata can also cascade himself to go into
the criminal. And I wanted to add this, Fred. One of the things, because we are focusing on what you need to do when you find yourself in a crime, two other things that needs to be done. One, by the police, because if somebody is under arrest, I know they use all manner of tactics, and they're very brilliant nowadays. They will come sometimes, the most cooled ones, in a very friendly manner that disarms you. But remember that there is what we usually say, the fruits of an illegal search or evidence obtained in an illegal way can be challenged in court. So again, the police need to let you know that, one, are you under arrest? And if they don't tell you that, you need to ask when a police officer knocks your door, before you speak, am I under arrest? Because in the US, which I hope they should practice here in terms of our police reforms, is that they need to read for you a statement they call the Miranda law. It is there in black and white. Every American knows it. You are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Everything, underline, everything and anything you say can and will be used against you. Very key operative words. So that once that statement is read to you...
Because we hear a lot of that in movies, I'm sure. But
we don't apply it.
Does that apply here?
In terms of police reforms, we need to say it and practice it until it gets into your head. Most of the time, 50% of criminal cases, people lose it because you don't know that you just simply can remain quiet. Let them beat you if they have to. And say, I have nothing to say. We've taken a lot of people to court, a lot of these political cases, and they will read for you everything. We went Budama case, Aladu or whatever. And then after reading to you all those things, you have counsel and they tell you, say, I have nothing to say. And that's all you record. You just say, I have read this thing, I simply have nothing to say. Because at that particular time, before everything and every corner of this case unfolds, you could say something that can and will be used against you. It is always safe to say, I have nothing to say, or just remain silent.
Because it goes beyond murder, because we're just looking at murder issues because they're on the headlines, but the fact that many people have found themselves on the wrong side of the law because of how they reacted once they were accused of a crime, or how they sold themselves, or how they explained themselves to the police. We're talking about cases of rape, alleged rape, talking about cases of alleged defilement, and these many people have actually found themselves having to serve time behind bars.
Actually, police officers equally need to be acquainted with the current laws and right from the supreme law of the land. And what Honorable Oluoch is saying is actually on paper, is enshrined in the Constitution under Article 49, that the rights of an arrested person, that you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to call any person that you deem fit could be of help to you. You have the right of, and you're even supposed to be told of the consequences of not remaining silent. But what happens in practice, and I think that is now where I fault the police officers, when they arrest you, they tell you switch off your phone, give us that phone. I mean, that is a police force. Police officers need to realize that it's now a service, it's not a force. When you get a person arrested, I mean, inform him of the reason of the arrest, explain to him that, you know, his rights. Tell him that you can actually call any person that you may deem fit, you know, for your help, and give him a right of bail if the crime is directly bailable, and make him understand that clearly, if you don't remain silent, whatever you're going to say will be used against you. Wow. Now, what happens with the current structure of our police service is that when they arrest you, they rough you up, they threaten you, they actually come in their 50s or in their numbers, times in their heavy suits, or you know, or heavy uniforms, or in their blues or whatever, and they force you in the car, take you to the station and tell you, Tokiatu, you know, get inside. You're supposed to do this. You know, that form of harassment is old age. We need to move out of that. You can actually win a case as a police officer, even if you want to win a case as a police officer, if you go the small and silent and quiet way, very calm, while respecting the rights of the arrested person.
And this is just some of the information that our viewers need to have. This is some of the very crucial information that could determine whether or not you get to spend time behind bars. Because a simple misstep, once you come into any contact with a criminal event, or a criminal himself, or a suspect in any crime, could determine what happens next.
To me, I think the judiciary, and this is the CJ, we've seen them visiting and doing those whatever clinics. It's the highest time they should be able to demystify these courts. And I think it will be a good opportunity for the judiciary to come up with some fora that they can be able to sensitize the public. This will go in a big way in mitigating this risk that we're having. Because really, the police are really messing up everywhere, you know. And a good police investigator, you'll see in the long run, will this person be charged or not? So some of the investigations are being done, they are so shoddy that they're just looking for intimidations, looking for these issues. They are not doing proper investigations. And it's indeed important. Training is key. I've seen some court prosecutors, some of them, they're just policemen. I think it's the highest time they should pick lawyers to become prosecutors in courts. Some of them, on matters of the law, they're so ignorant, or they just understand it in a shallow way. I remember some times back, there was a plan to ensure that all the prosecutors, they're lawyers. But this I don't think has happened.
Nowadays just for guidance, nowadays we have state councils. I think reforms are taking shape. They're picking up state councils. There's something that very important for people to know, and I think, I don't know, Honorable Oluoch can stand guided now that is my senior here, that any statement, any confession that you make before a police officer who is not in the rank of an inspector, you know, downwards, if you make a confession maybe under duress or something, you can have it thwarted when you go to the court of law. Okay. But if it's made before a police officer who is in a rank of inspector and above, then the presumption is that this one clearly, this officer knew what he was doing, and it should be admissible.
But now that should be sensitized to the public.
Spot on that
exactly. Now, people don't know this. Now, this is the kind of information I'm saying, because Well, just looking at the headlines and the number of people who end up being arrested because of a crime that probably was committed by one person, but about 10 people end up behind bars before a murder probe actually is exhaustively concluded. It could take years, but the fact that you've been held behind bars for any period of time will have implications on your life. Some of these things you can avoid them if at all you know what to do immediately after you encounter such a challenge. Let's now move on from that headline, but before we do that, let's take a break. When we come back, we take a look at this problem of bribery. More Kenyans getting into the bribe game, and after that, we'll take a look at the politics. Raila versus Ruto once again.